Hi guys, Steve here from Crymas Studios. Welcome to another episode of PAL Only Games. This time we're going to be covering the NES. So, let's get to it. Now I played the SNES version of this game before playing this one and was expecting a carbon copy with maybe some downgraded graphics. The two games, although similar in being straightforward platformers, are substantially different in level design and even overall feel. Asteris Attack is still pretty short-ranged, but punching enemies feels very satisfying. Look at them, they just fly off screen. Awesome! The graphics are also really appealing and colorful for the NES. Even the music doesn't disappoint in most levels. The game does have a time limit though, which I generally don't like in these kinds of games. Plus the lack of bosses makes some hard parts very monotonous. All in all, a must play though if you're into the genre, and possibly even better than the SNES sequel. Although technically a PAL only game, looking at Trolls in Crazy Land and Doki Doki Yuenchi next to each other might cause some people to disagree with me on that. And you would be right. At least partially. Trolls in Crazy Land is a reskin of the Japanese game Doki Doki Yuenchu for the European public. Because for some reason they thought we would respond better to fully naked trolls. Which is a fair point, I guess. I know I do. I hadn't heard of this game before and went in with very low expectations. What I can tell you is that Trolls in Crazy Land surprised me. In a good way. It's a quirky little platformer that doesn't pretend to be something more than it actually is. You throw balls to defeat your enemies and can throw in multiple directions, which is always a plus in these kinds of games. The enemies are generally nothing special, but some nice boss battles help break the drag. In some later levels there's even some decently difficult platforming. I didn't particularly care for the music though, and some of the graphics were a little too children's playground for me, if that makes sense. But hey, if you can find this game for a decent price, I say go for it. I always found it weird that Nintendo would put Super in an NES title. When looking at Super Turrican for the Super Nintendo, Super is indeed an apt description. The NES version, although also a good game, is not quite as super. Well, that's a lot of supers. Now don't get me wrong, this cool looking run and gun platformer definitely delivers. It just falls a bit flat in the control and sound department. While not the worst controls on the NES, your Turrican just stops completely mid-jump if you release the button, and has no momentum to speak of. The soundtrack, while containing a few gems, can get really annoying and distracting at times. I also found the game to be much easier than its SNES counterpart. I even managed to make it to the final boss, but was bitterly disappointed by how easy he is. I never understood why games would have such exploitable oversights at crucial moments. But oh well. At least it doesn't go for €100 loose like its SNES version. The Legend of Prince Valiant. That sure is a title, I guess. Well, this true PAL exclusive NES game is based on the comic and animated series of the same name. To be honest, I went into this game with high hopes and was, well, sourly disappointed. When looking at the game on the surface, it might appear to have some striking similarities to a game like Ninja Gaiden. But as soon as you get beyond the initial layers and title though, it becomes clear that the game, well, isn't any good. Your character responds very slowly, enemies pop up out of nowhere. Insta-kills are all around and feel very cheap at times. And the music, well, it gets old real fast. Why they would put a timer in a game like this is also beyond me, by the way. And as I alluded to before, I died a lot while playing this. I even had a hard time getting beyond the first level. One thing that the Legend of Prince Valiant does have going for it is that it gets better the further you get throughout the game. It also throws quite a bit of curveballs at you, like switching to a completely different game style between levels. You get to shoot a crossbow in first person view and even get to shoot enemy ships from your own ship. A cool game to have in your collection for sure. So if you have the money and patience, buy it, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it. Saving the best for last. International cricket only came out in Australia, probably because they figured it wouldn't sell here. And they might be right about that. Now I don't know anything about the rules of cricket, and frankly, I couldn't give a crikey. Did I say that right? Oh well, if you enjoy cricket, this is a game about it. I think. Those were 5 PAL-only games, so games that only were released in Europe and Australia for the NES. I hope you learned something new. Until next time, bye bye.
In the wildest parts of America, it takes a special kind of man to survive. But for those select few, those who can learn and who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, emerge men who can thrive. Well, diggity!